Who knows what this is? Hello fellow CNC nuts, and welcome. This little beastie I made about 6 years ago when I was in the process of upgrading this machine. If you wait long enough, I'll show you what it is. In the meantime, I've been getting on and have now got the holes drilled in my rails, and I'll show you how I've done that. And I've also made this here. I've made two of these. This is to attach the y-axis carriage to the existing x-axis rail on my current machine. So sit back and I'll show you how I made them. I'm going to be drilling the holes for mounting it to the aluminium extrusion. Using this little jig here, I only need to measure one hole and then only its distance away from the edge. The jig's nothing more than a piece of MDF with a little fence screwed to it. I've drilled a hole here, in my case an 8mm hole, which suits the extrusion I'll be using, and it's a set distance away from the fence. I've then drilled another hole 148mm along from it, the same distance out from the fence. I'm going to use this one to drill the hole, and once the hole's drilled, I'll pick that hole up and put it over this bolt. This bolt will then hold it in position while I drill the next hole, and I'll just keep it moving it along through the jig. So let's drill our first hole. As always, when working with something like this here, it pays to have safety glasses, some gloves, and earmuffs. With that first hole drilled, let's clean these filings away from it. I can now slide it along and drop the rail over the bolt. It's now set in the correct position to drill the next hole. I can keep doing this to the entire length of the rail until it's completely drilled. It'll end up being done very quickly indeed. Every now and then I'll need to stop and just clear these metal filings away from the working area. I don't want them getting caught in behind here, because otherwise that will cause it to hold the rail out further from the fence than it should be. And there we have it. That's two rails completely done in 5 minutes. I only had to make one measurement on each. That's from the front edge here to the first hole. All the rest was set by the jig. I checked when I got to the end of it, and it was spot on. Same measurement at the end. At last, a practical use for mathematics. Still none the wiser on what this is? Well, here's a hint. It takes bearings. A bearing goes in each end of this here, so that it can rotate on it. The shaft goes through the center of it. So I'm now working on these here, and I've got two of these to make. I need 6 holes in each of these, and these are going to be what tie the x-axis to the y-axis. Now I'm doing this using a piece of box section steel. It's 50 by 100 or 2 by 4 for those who live in countries ruled by the imperial system. I'm doing this by only marking 3 holes on this. I marked these three here and drilled them. What I'm doing is I'm setting up fences to do the rest. So I've got a block here that's 45 millimeters wide, which is the spacing between these holes. I set up a fence, drill the first hole. I can then remove the block, slide along the fence and drill the second one. I'll then put my block back in place, bring it down, slip it into this hole here like so. I can now move my fence to the new location like so, clamp it in place, and I can drill my new holes. I can take this piece here, drill a hole here, remove my block, drill the next hole, and of course I can drill the matching hole for this one here. I only need to do that 3 times and these will be done. This way I only need to measure 3 holes. This jig will make it really simple to do and accurate.
Now that the pilot holes are drilled, I can now go back through with an 8mm drill and enlarge them to their final size.
Now I'm using a similar technique for doing the holes I want on the sides. I want 2 holes 45 apart, and this time what I've done is I've marked a single hole on here. I put my 45mm spacer in there, which is the spacing between the holes. I've marked this one here and I've set it there. Once I've done this one here, I'll then remove the spacer, move it across, drill my second hole. Now one thing I do have to be careful of is these are a matched pair, so I have to be very careful which side I drill the hole on, be it this side or that one. And in this case it has to be this one here, and it has to be orientated with the holes facing me, whereas the other one was done with the holes facing away with me. If I don't do that, it won't be right.
Now that you got your VRails all primed and painted and looking lovely, the next thing you need to do is you need to go through and remove paint from the bearing surfaces of the V-rail. If you don't do that, the V-rollers, as they run along the V, will pick up that paint and it will gum them up. I've already made this mistake once before, so you don't have to.
So to remove this paint, I've tried several methods, but one that seems to work quite well is simply taking a sharp knife and just run along and scratch the paint off. It comes off fairly quickly. Just run along the entire rail and remove the paint. So there we have it. We've got our rails all nicely painted and the paint removed from the top of the V so it doesn't gum up our V bearings. We've got these made here to attach the current X-axis rail to our new Y carriages. Now I'm not going to get a chance to do that this week. We'll have to wait for another episode. It's going to be quite a bit of work to change it over. Hey, coming along with this? Figured out what it is yet? So back when I originally started building my first Joe's CNC machine, I couldn't get hold of the V-bearings. They weren't overly common at that stage, and they were very expensive. It would have cost me an arm and a leg to import them. So to get around this, I came up with this idea. It's a little steel ring designed to take 2 R6 bearings with a V built into it. They have the same V as the original bearings. They're the same size, they're just a little bit longer, which made absolutely no difference
to building the machine. Now of course V-bearings are so cheap it's not worth worrying about using them, and even to this day this machine actually still has 8 of those homemade V-bearings on it, and they work really well. I don't have any problem with using my homemade V-bearings. The only reason I'm not using them in this case is I want to try and make things standard in case other people wish to try and follow me and make this machine. That way they can get off-the-shelf parts. Now when I upgraded the X-axis and turned this to rack and pinion, it had a dual rail system on the X-axis, and so I came up with this idea. It was a V-roller. The idea is the V's are already set in it, they match the 2 V-rails on the X-axis, and it would simply roll across it. The only problem is when I tighten up the bolt going through the roller, it pinches the 2 bearings in it and they no longer roll properly. Unfortunately, not every idea I have works, as I hope it will, but I hope these carriages work out anyway. Well, that about wraps it up for this week. Don't forget to check out my new website, www.CNCnutz.com. I've got a lot of my old videos posted over there, as well as additional information on some of the newer ones. In the meantime, thanks for watching guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys later. Cheers.